Welcome to the Literary Escape Podcast, the only podcast that serves both readers and authors of historical Christian romance. We read, discuss, review, and rate books in this unique romance subgenre, and sprinkle in a few contemporary Christian suspense books. Authors, we bring you inside tips and tricks from those who have gone before you. Then we bring both readers and authors together for fun-filled live Q&As. Literary Escape is the one-stop shop for both readers and authors to connect, learn, and grow together. Let's dive into this adventurous episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another Friday Book Club discussion. We have just a few announcements before we dive into this week's episode. First of all, it is so exciting to finally launch the Literary Escape Book Club. You can now become a member for just $7 a month or $70 for the year. Just head on over to literaryescape.com and click on Book Club in the menu to join. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that my journey as an author began when I couldn't find enough historical Christian romance novels that balanced faith with the kind of passion described in Song of Solomon. You know, books that are packing the heat and riding the line, as I like to say. That's why I started writing my own adventures set in the Wild West, featuring cowboys who tame the frontier while honoring both God and the women they love. What I didn't expect was how many of you would reach out saying you've been searching for the exact same thing, and how many of you wanted more ways to connect beyond just reading the books or listening to this podcast. So that's where the Literary Escape Book Club comes in. What exactly is the Literary Escape Book Club? It's an exclusive community where readers who appreciate passionate but pure Christian romance can come together in a more intimate setting. When you join the book club, you'll receive, first, exclusive online author events where we can chat directly about books, writing, and all things historical and contemporary suspense romance. I'm talking Q&A sessions, behind-the-scenes peeks at my writing process, and special guest appearances from other authors in these genres. Second, free ebooks of all my new releases. That's right. As a member, you'll automatically receive an ebook copy of every new novel I publish delivered straight to your inbox. Third, early access to signed paperbacks and merchandise before they're available to the general public. You'll be the first in line for signed copies, special editions, and any bookish merchandise we create. Fourth, regular door prize drawings exclusively for members. Throughout the year, we'll be giving away signed books, exclusive merchandise, and other special surprises. And finally, a community of readers who appreciate the same kind of stories you do. A place where we can discuss the books we love. Now, I know many of you are wondering how this relates to the podcast, and don't worry, the Literary Escape podcast isn't going anywhere. In fact, the book club will enhance your podcast experience. As a book club member, you'll get input on which books we review next and the chance to submit questions for author interviews. The podcast and book club work together to create what I've always envisioned, a one-stop shop for both readers and writers of historical Christian romance and contemporary Christian suspense romance to connect, learn, and grow together. So come join us in the Literary Escape Book Club today. In other news, our next Coffee and Books event will be on Tuesday, June 24th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join authors Lynn Shannon, Crystal Cottle, and myself for an hour of book talk. Be sure to sign up for this free event at literaryescape.com/events to receive a link to join in. The Kickstarter campaign for my novel Uncharted Trials has only 8 days left, and I'd love your support in bringing this story to life. Uncharted Trials is a gripping Wild West romance where murder, faith, and forbidden love collide. It follows James McPherson, a physician and bounty brother who never expected his latest patient would steal his heart. But Madeline Flynn, a survivor of unspeakable tragedy, awakens something in his soul. As he tends to her wounds, James vows to shield her from the murderer stalking her family. As their attraction deepens, dark secrets threaten everything they hold dear. When their paths violently collide and Madeline is torn from his grasp, both must trust in God's plan to find their way back to each other. The funds raised through this Kickstarter will go directly toward professional publishing costs, ensuring Uncharted Trials receives the quality presentation it deserves. And as a special incentive for backers, I'm offering an exclusive limited edition cover that won't be available anywhere else once the campaign ends on June 1st. Whether you're a fan of historical fiction, faith-based stories, or just love a good romantic suspense, I think you'll find something to enjoy in Uncharted Trials. To support the campaign and secure your copy, just visit literaryscape.com/campaign or follow the link in this episode's show notes. Even if you can't back the project financially, sharing it with friends who might enjoy this kind of story would mean the world to me. And a huge thank you to those who have already purchased your limited edition copy of Uncharted Trials. And now, let's dive into today's regular episode, where we'll be talking with author Lynn H. Blackburn. All right, welcome back, everyone, to another Friday Book Club podcast episode. And I am so excited to have Lynn Blackburn back on with us again today. And she's going to dive into her Gossamer Falls series. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's always a blast to talk to you. You're just so full of energy. I love it. But I will tell you, we absolutely fell in love with your Gossamer Falls series.
I'm
And
so glad.
yes, it's wonderful. And we're all, of course, really want book 3, but we know we got to wait till next year, next March. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. The cliffhanger at the end, that little like sneak peek you gave us, had us all going, Mo, you better get in there. You know, you got to save her.
It's funny because I truly hate writing the teaser chapter in a book because typically my books come out a year apart, and by the time I need to turn in I need to give them a teaser chapter, but I'm usually nowhere near done with that book. And I'm terrified of giving either putting something in there and then changing it completely during revisions or whatever, because by that time it's too late. I mean, everybody's already read it. But that one, when I got to when I sat down and wrote it, and I was just like, oh, yeah, that'll work. That's gonna be okay. And it did make it through almost intact. I don't think we changed much. Well, that's not true. We might. We did a little bit of stuff before it ever went to print in the back of Break My Fall, but I actually haven't done revisions for that book yet. So it's possible some things might get changed a little bit before. I always recommend, even if you read it in the back of a book, you should start from chapter 1 in the next one, even if you're reading the whole series together,
Yeah.
because most likely that teaser chapter was written well before the final book was revised and all of that, and it could have some changes. So
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah, I always put the first chapter of the next book in the back of mine, and you're right. It's pretty much set, but that final version has just the tiniest bit of tweaks
Things
after it's
could
gone through
change just
everything.
a little bit, and it's always
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They make me nervous. I have even lobbied to be like, could you just put somebody else's teaser chapter in, like just somebody else's book and not mine, and then do my chapter when it's already finished with revisions, but that in somebody's book,
In somebody else's. Yeah.
somebody else's book. So yeah, that's like one of the most stressful parts. It's super
Mhm.
random, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad y'all enjoyed it.
Oh my goodness, we fell in love with with all the characters. Did you have a favorite when you were writing?
Well, I mean, I'm very partial to Granny Quinn just in general. That's just she's just fun. No, not really. I tend to think whoever's I'm writing at that moment is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, probably Bronwyn's my current favorite. But I mean, but then Eliza, I really like Eliza and Abby. I love the idea of these little girls getting to grow up together, and just that whole dynamic of. I would love it. I do not have time to write that, But I would love to write something where we see them growing up or see them later on in life, and even getting into the dynamic of Eliza coming into the family and how Abby is dealing with that because she was the princess. She was the one in that immediate family. She was the little girl and she was the only girl. And then now here's Eliza. But I loved watching the girls. And of course, there's the dog. I grew up with a golden retriever. So I hadn't had anybody have a dog in a while. And I was like, oh, Cal needs a dog. And so it's just, I like all of them. I think there's Gossamer Falls is probably it's an idealized fictional world. Obviously, there's outside forces that are not ideal, clearly not ideal. But you do have the family dynamic and the close knit situation that I think people just, it's what we wish small town life was like, where everybody's friendly and the family's all together and everybody gets along reasonably well.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. But yeah, I think I do have a general love of my third book characters, almost always. I think there's just something about them. By the time you get to the third book, there's so much of their story that's been sprinkled in. And so they feel, in some ways, the most fleshed out and they have a lot of depth just because you've been thinking about them the whole time and
Yeah.
getting to their story. Say all that, but my editor has not yet done the revisions on Mo and Bronwyn. So I've written it, but I have no idea if it's any good or not yet. There's always so much pressure on the third
Mhm.
book too, because it builds that way and you feel this tension. So I I really did love them. I'm excited but also terrified for my editor to get a hold of them and see what
Yeah.
she has
I
to
I
say.
think there's always a little fear there, right? A little bit
Yes.
for that. But okay, so one of the things we absolutely loved what you hit on, it does read like an ideal small town and the family is so close knit. I mean, what was your I don't know, your inspiration, or was it just the backdrop you needed to make it all come together?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, there's always taking liberties with whatever you're working with to make it work for your story. But I'm from Western North Carolina, and I have cousins, so the idea of the cousins came about because the year I turned 16. I'm the oldest grandchild. My dad's the oldest of seven. And the year I turned 16, I had four cousins born between April and September. And so that was and two of them are twins. So that was part of the idea of Mo. And originally, when I was first thinking about it, I thought, well, maybe they'll just all be cousins. And then I thought, well, maybe I could make Mo and Meredith siblings and then Cal, but where they've all grown up together. And there's a sense, where I grew up has changed so much. But when I went to get to vote for the first time, I was 18, I go to vote and I write my name, Lynn Huggins. And the lady at the voting place looked at me and said, now, who do you belong to? And I looked at her and I said, I'm Kenny's oldest and Jane and Houston's granddaughter. Okay, yep, I see it. That makes sense. I did not know this woman from Adam, never laid eyes on her, but she saw my last name and immediately that was a whole situation right there. So kind of the idea of your name having some meaning in a place, where people know you have a reputation for good or bad.
Yeah.
The cousins, the thing is, I love my cousins, but I'm not close to them because I am the oldest. And the next oldest is my younger sister, who I am very close to. And then there was a couple of years. And so the tight bond that these cousins have in the books, it's not that I have that. But I will tell you the idea of all of them living kind of the way they do,
Mhm.
the twins that are my youngest cousins, just in the last month bought adjacent land, and they're
Oh
going to
my
build houses.
goodness.
It's like, you're making my fiction come true. This makes me so happy. And so, yeah, so there's there are pieces of my real life. My grandfather died when I was little, and the house that they had lived in was big. It was too much house for her, really. And so at some point, I don't even remember, 20 years ago maybe, she built a house, but she built a house on land that her mother had given to her. And so that's that whole side of the family, and that side of the family, they all own that land. And my dad remembers going there to that part of town to see his great grandparents. And so it's kind of that idea of people who just have a lot of roots and a lot of years and generations in that place. And then, um, of course, made to what I want it to be. I really do prefer fictional settings because I can make them what I want them to be. And so that's my favorite way to handle that. But there was a lot of um, just kind of pulling from my extended family dynamic, and then of course, fictionalizing it. And it's not everybody. It's, my dad's the oldest of seven. There are 14 grandchildren. I've lost count on the great grands. They're everywhere. And, there are unspoken rules. Like if you have a conflict, it does not happen at Granny's house.
Yeah.
Like that's, and so it's things like that. Whereas like you can have all the conflict you want, but you don't bring it to dinner.
Hmm.
And, they, the ones that still live in Hendersonville get together for dinner almost every Thursday night. They go out, go to dinner. So there's things that nature that I've pulled into it, and then of course just made it what I needed it to be for the
Yeah.
story.
I love it. And I think the reason, so I have 5 sisters. One of them is in the podcast book club with me. And I think what made us like fall in love with it so much is that it's so similar to our own. When you're talking about like your grandmother has this land, right? So we have our great grandparents have this huge farm in Indiana, and
Hmm.
we do these annual family reunions, right? And
Okay.
so,
Okay.
but we have family in Wisconsin and Michigan, and so they rotate. So it's like every 3 years it's in Indiana.
Okay.
We rotate around, but it's the family farm, right? So anything that went on, it's like, hey, meet up at the family farm. That's where this is going down. And
Yes.
and so we totally could connect with that because that's where you see all your cousins, right? And
Uh-huh.
all
Yeah,
your
that's where they all are. Yeah.
second and third cousins, and all of that. And so for us too is really special because it seemed for our Indiana clan, everyone kind of stayed close. But then my parents moved 3 hours north. And so for us, I was always jealous of my cousins because I'm like, well, you guys get to go to school together,
Hmm.
all of this connection stuff. And we're up here, I just have my sisters, which were great. I love them.
No.
But
Yeah.
it's just different. I love the dynamics that you brought in there, but I think that's what made it so relatable for us. There was also another scene that was very relatable to us ladies, and it made us laugh. If you remember, now the name's gonna go away. In the second book, who's your
Meredith.
yes. So they find the bug on her car, and she's really worried that it might have also caught sound, and she had Mexican food a few nights ago, and she felt like she should have had the freedom,
Do
to
what
let
she
loose
needed
in
to
the car.
do. That's right.
Yeah, loved that, and we totally agreed with her, like, yes, we should be able to let loose in the car.
Right? I mean, you expect a certain level of privacy. I didn't even share when I wrote it. I was like, I don't know. And then everybody thought it was funny, so we kept it. I was like, oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, we read the scene on the podcast when we talked about that and just laughed about it. We absolutely loved it. The other thing we loved about that book was the way, Gray, I'm sorry, I've read so many books since then. It's Gray, right? Yes. That way he pursued her after he screwed up big time. And the Chick-fil-A. All right, were those some of your favorite foods
Oh,
or
100%.
okay.
If somebody would bring me a flight of coffee, I would be here for that. So there, I didn't do it, but in Charleston, we were in Charleston a few years ago, and I had a flight of grits. So not everybody likes grits, but it was a flight of grits. And I have seen these flights of coffee, and I was like, oh, that's what I need to do. Where it's especially because there's a coffee shop right there, and she loves all the different creamers and the different milks and all that, so that would be perfect for her. But then I thought, yeah, Chick-fil-A. I mean, I listen. I do have a friend who said that when their budget software told them they needed to add Chick-fil-A as a column on their budget software, they thought maybe they'd been going too much. This was years ago. I was like, that feels right. I eat a lot of Chick-fil-A. My kids, we're on the road a lot. We're on the go a lot, and it is a easy, and they almost always get your order right, which is lovely because, but I do love some chicken minis, and a chicken biscuit is my favorite. So we did, I don't have it in front of me, but we actually had a sticker made that is the never underestimate the power of a chicken biscuit. And it has a chicken biscuit on it because let's face
Right.
it, that one might have an iced coffee. I'm not sure, but we're like, listen, if the way to a woman's heart might just be coffee and Chick-fil-A, it could happen.
I did feel bad because everyone ate her Chick-fil-A. I don't, she may have got like one bite.
Yes, she's very generous of heart, but you do think maybe she should have said, whoa, hands off of my Chick-fil-A. But yeah, well, and it is, I live in a place where we have Chick-fil-A very handy. There's multiple Chick-fil-A's not terribly far from us. But I know someone who's like, do you understand that I have to drive an hour and a half for Chick-fil-A? And I'm just like, well, that's tragic. I'm really sorry. And that was part of the logic too. It's like, well, where they live, there wouldn't be a Chick-fil-A there. And so it would be a treat. You'd have to work harder to get that. So made him, because he had to work for it. He
Did.
did have to work for it.
He
That
he
was
did.
he messed up. And I don't like, in general, I'm not really a fan of the third act breakup scene unless it really fits the story. And this one wasn't even a third act really, but the fight, there's almost always some form of conflict, but I don't love it when I'm like, okay, well, it's time for them to have a fight so they can break up and then get back together. It feels a little too predictable to me. It's not my favorite thing. I actually, when I see a book description that says no third act breakup, I'm like, good. I don't really want one. You would rather them spend some time figuring out who they are as a couple and that sort of thing. And I actually struggle sometimes making them fight, making them have some conflict. And when I wrote that scene where she just lets him have it, and I was like, I felt bad for several days. I was like, I don't know how long she can make him suffer before I'm gonna cave. Meredith might have held out longer than I did. He has to fix this. He has to fix this immediately.
Yes. Yeah. We were all like, whoa, we were shocked when she told him off. I mean, we totally understood it, but, and then for them to try to have a conversation, no, that was not her. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of your novella now. I'm switching into your
Hmm.
novella.
That's the problem when you read them all. There's like, wait, which couple did what? How? Who?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
Kathy and Donovan, yes, they did have, yes,
Yes.
they were
But him,
more
like, they're trying to have this conversation, but everyone's around the fire pit, like, listening in.
listening. Like, oh, what? Do tell. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We thought that was hilarious, by the way. We really enjoyed that. So one of the questions we did have was with Brick.
Okay.
Will Brick get his own story, or what are you thinking on that?
You know, I don't know. I did write him intentionally where he could get his own story. I'm not sure if he will. He may get a story at some point that is not in Gossamer Falls. I could see him being. This is one of those things where it could get a little tricky, but I'm learning as I do this more to leave more characters with some open endedness so that I can grab them and borrow them and put them in other places. Because sometimes it's really nice to have a character that you can tie a series together, or to tie a series that's maybe a couple series away to another one, just because as a reader I enjoy that. I like it when I see a character show up and I don't want it to be too much where I can't keep it straight, or I feel like I'm missing something because I didn't know who these people were, like missing something crucial. But I also like it when I go, oh, wait, they're so and so and they are from here. And that was because sometimes then it can also ideally help the reader want to go find out more about the earlier series, or books that are in your backlist and things like
Mhm.
that. And I did think about Brick when we were planning the next series, but Brick did not come to the top as the character who definitely gets another book. That was somebody else. in Break My Fall, but it was not Brick.
Okay.
So, yes, and it's funny because I've had several people ask me about Brick, but also about Carlos, and Carlos gets the story.
Yes.
I think I don't know. I really wasn't sure how much he was even going to show up in the book when I was writing it. And then when he had that conversation at the end with Faith, actually, which was fun for me to pull a defend and protect character in that much. But when they were chatting, I thought, oh, Carlos needs a happily ever after, doesn't he? And so he's going to get one, but it'll be a few years. I think he's the second book of the next series, which means we're like 3 years out before that one comes out. But yeah, I do have hope for Brick at some point. I'm just not sure where he's going to land.
Okay. We all liked him. His mother is a hoot. I mean, kind of just like the gossip and like, well, I know why you boys are here. You just need to get the scoop, right?
Well, and it's funny because I dated a guy who was friends with a guy. How's that for convoluted? That his grandmother did this big spread every Sunday. And I went over there and I had never, I mean, my family does a big spread, but this woman did this every Sunday. And it was every food. I mean, there would be like 3 or 4 proteins. And I mean, every pork chops, cube steak, fried chicken, all these things and veggies and all this stuff. And not that she was a gossip, 'cause she was not a gossip. That wasn't it. But just the idea of somebody I I enjoy cooking. I don't enjoy cleaning up.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of other things to do, and I am not going to do that very often. But the idea of somebody who, on a random day, would cook that much food and then just, come sit down and eat and enjoy it, and you know that, and then being the gossip. And so I was like, okay, yeah, she's kind of a hoot. I like her,
Yeah.
and I think she would make a hilarious mother-in-law because I just think she would really, really baffle some poor girl. So
Yes.
she would be great.
I agree. Okay, one of our other favorite characters is Minnie.
Yes. I love
We
Minnie.
love her, but I think what we love the most is how the family wraps around her.
Hmm.
So just share a little bit about her and
So Minnie is, so in this story, there's the Quinn family. You have the patriarch and matriarch of the family, Papa and Granny Quinn. They had 7 children. Minnie is one of those children. And so she's now in her 50s, I guess. So about my age, maybe. I don't know. I should look at it. I have a spreadsheet somewhere that has all the actual ages and how old people were when they did what. But Minnie has special needs. It's not really described as anything specific because I felt like that was more realistic for someone in their 50s at that time. Diagnoses weren't as readily available. We wouldn't necessarily know, and they might be able to find out now, but I intentionally left that more vague. And she has cognitive delays. She's relatively healthy, but it's kind of like having a more of a toddler or a early elementary age adult, mentally that age, cognitively that age, but in a grown up body. And that was important to me. My daughter Emma is 22. She has cognitive delays. I see that more and more as that circle of friends that we have, that their families and everyone, they've grown up with Emma. They know Emma. There's nothing weird about it. That's just Emma. Like, Emma's gonna do what Emma's gonna do, and that's what we're gonna deal with. And Emma is adored. I posted a picture of Emma today on my Instagram and on Facebook because they sent me this absolutely adorable picture of Emma. Nothing, I have to be careful. I could turn my whole platform into pictures of Emma. Emma is very popular. And so I intentionally don't. I try not to overshare, but she's adorable, and she has truly Emma lights up where, and she just makes everybody happy. Like, people just adore her. And that's not to say that it isn't incredibly challenging to have her in our home and to be her mom. I've told people before that, I mean, it's very sanctifying to have a child with disabilities because it pulls out every bit of selfishness you've ever seen in your had. You didn't know you had that level of selfishness in you. And you have to really process because nothing that is normal is going to happen. And you have to throw all that out the window. And it does require a real dependence on God and prayer to know what to do next. And so I did want to have that representation in there. And I loved the idea of these kids growing up with their Aunt Minnie and kind of starting to take over some of the responsibility for, like, she hangs out with Meredith one morning and there's this large family because I am very aware of the fact that, Lord willing, I should outlive my child with disabilities. And hopefully, there's going to be people who will continue to take care of her because she's never going to be able to be independent. And I think about that, my boys are very well aware of that. And having some community around that and just normalizing that this is life. And even not that many years ago, people with my daughter's syndrome, they would tell the families to just institutionalize them and kind of forget that they ever were there. And I can't imagine how anyone could do that. But I also know that it was a different time. And so that was
Mhm.
also part of it where that wasn't the way this family operated. And
Right.
she was there, so they were going to keep her and raise her and do the best they could and do the best for her. And now she's basically got this whole community of people who do truly benefit from her.
Mhm.
That's one thing. When Emma was little and we still didn't have a diagnosis, we weren't sure what was going on. One of my aunts told me, she said, "Lynn, I just keep praying for a miracle for Emma, and the answer I keep getting back is that she is the miracle."
Aw.
And I was like, "That's pretty accurate." I don't know that we anybody who's ever spent time with her, who has been around her, they love her, and that doesn't mean, girl can slam a door with the best of them. She doesn't like what happened. She'll get mad. She'll stomp up the stairs and slam the door. And if she doesn't get the reaction she wants, she will reopen the door and slam it again. So she's sort of like having a toddler with hormones, because there's that. And so, but I thought, I would like Minnie to be there and have some place in the family and in life and just to be, not to get into the weeds with it. It certainly is, that's not the point
Yeah.
of the story,
Yeah.
but it's nice sometimes. I even had a random comment from a reader one time, that because there's a almost a throwaway comment in a book. It's in Never Fall Again, where they're asking if Eliza has any food allergies. And they just, does she have any food allergies? Anything we need to know about? And they're, no, she's fine. That was it. And somebody commented and said how much they appreciated that little bit of representation about it being not a big deal. Like, it's a big deal because we're going to ask, we're going to make sure, but it's not the butt of a joke.
Yeah.
It's not a negative. It's not seen as a real, like, a big inconvenience.
Mhm.
I didn't think anything of it. Emma has lots of food allergies. It's just something we deal with all the time. But it's those kinds of things where sometimes it's like, it's nice to see a little bit of some reality there and what people are dealing with. And then as they age, these siblings will be taking care of her and their children will be helping to take care of her.
Yeah.
I didn't, it was when I first, I don't even know, at one point I had kind of made a little family tree, and then I was like, wait a minute, I think this needs to happen. I'm sure that was the Lord. That was one of those ideas where I was like, I didn't set out to do it,
Mhm.
but then she came on the scene and made herself comfortable. So yeah.
Yes. Yes, and we absolutely loved her, and you're right, it does help people who have family members with
Hmm.
disabilities. It's just really nice to see it and see it. You
Yes.
wrote it just so well, like you said, just so normal. Like, I immediately pictured my niece through the whole thing as
Oh.
Minnie, because you're right, it's just she's a toddler, but she's a teenager, you know? And so you've obviously been there,
Hmm.
done
Yep.
that, but her cousins are so amazing about she has some mobility issues as well.
Right.
She can move, but not at a fast pace, and so they are so good about sticking with her. So when they go outside and play, she's never left alone. She's never like the one trailing behind, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just the way you wrote the family so similar. And so I've just
I
on
love
so many
that.
levels we could connect. So
Love that.
absolutely loved it. Loved it. So you said, okay, we really want to know what's going down with Mo and Bronwyn. Can you share even just like a tiny little hint, or you don't have to, but
Well, I can tell you that we're trying to figure out how to. Well, it'll be interesting to see because my editor hasn't gotten a hold of it yet. But there is actual. I've never done this before, but there is actual backstory in the third book where there are scenes, not just referenced, but on the page, dialogue to kind of flesh out what happened between them, where how she got into trouble and all the drama between the two of them. So I think they are they've both messed up royally, and so it's made it where they have hurt each other, but also they still love each other. I mean, they do. They really do. They just can't seem to even manage to carry on a civil conversation, apparently. And so they aren't talking anymore. We've had my editor and I have actually had some long discussions about them not speaking as far as how far can I take this? Also, they both they deserve it, but they deserve each other. Those two have driven me up the wall, and I'm like, you two are making me mad. And it's funny because of course people who don't write sometimes are like, you're in charge. Like, and I'm like, but am I? I mean, I'm not sure that I am. I mean, I am, but I'm not. And it has to make sense and it has to feel right and it has to be true to them. So I am, if they don't end up in the final version, I think I will have to still share them because I was able to write some scenes where, um, when they were little, like the day they met, when she met all of them in kindergarten. So I've written that scene. And then a little bit later when Mo takes her to the waterfall. And so things that are significant in their life. And if it doesn't make it into the final cut, I'm still going to have to make them available to readers because they were just super fun to write. And I think people would enjoy them.
just bring
So,
some depth into that, like
mhm.
how the relationship started and then grew, this
Yeah, because
childhood.
they
Yeah.
do have, of all of my most of my third book characters have been kind of a either friends to lovers or enemies to, like that was their Gabe and Anissa were more enemies to lovers and Zane and Tessa were more friends to lovers. But I haven't had a third book couple that has this much history, with they've known each other since kindergarten kind of history. And I really wanted that to be shown because it also ties into they have hurt each other, but there's also a great well there for them to be willing to forgive. Like there's so much history that there are ways
They can get there. They
they
can
can get there.
reconcile.
They can
Yeah.
get there. Um, but they were hard to write. I don't know why I do this to myself. All third book couples are a disaster. They're always so hard to write. But I'm very anxious for my editor to get a hold of them, and it will be soon. Just because I'm not sure the story line I actually love. It's the interactions there as far as how we want to lay it out and present it. And
Mhm.
but yeah, they were. I hope because it is tricky when you have two characters that people already like but not together. And then you start to flesh out why they don't like each other together. You have to be careful that you don't make them unlikable.
Mm,
Do you see what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, we like Mo because we've seen how Mo acted toward Eliza and how Mo is such a good brother and such a good cousin and such a good friend. And somehow he's going to be there for Bronwyn no matter what. And she knows it, even though they're not speaking, because she knows he will. But he hasn't always been good to her, and she has definitely not always been good to him. And so there's that tension, and it's tricky to know
Yeah.
how to write it in a way that keeps them likable
Mhm.
and keeps the reader. I mean, readers are rooting for them to get together. But when they find out why they aren't and what it's going to take to get them to that point, it is a balancing act. And I think I got it, but I'm not sure. The good thing is I have a great deal of trust in my editor. She has incredible story sense, and I know if she's not feeling it or if she thinks that something's a little too heavy in one direction or another, she'll tell me and we'll get it fixed. But
Yeah,
they were particularly difficult just because of um, trying to keep them likable while fleshing out the drama. But it has been fun because everybody wants their story. So it's going to make the next year really interesting as
for
we wait to
sure.
get there.
For sure. Yes. And I know you brought in characters from your Dive Team
Hmm.
Investigation series and your Defend and Protect series. And I believe we did Dive Team Investigations last year on the
Hmm.
podcast. And then in July we have your Defend and Protect series. So
Yes.
we'll have Lynn back
You'll have
on
them
here
all.
for
Yes.
sure.
Oh, I can't wait.
For sure. Her books are definitely worth reading. Even you tend to have novellas tucked in there too. So
Yes.
which are always fun for those little side characters that you go, I wish they had a
I
happily
wish they
ever
had a
after
story.
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are some ways our listeners can connect with you and just kind of keep up with your series here?
So I always tell people the best way is to subscribe to the newsletter. There's always drama with social media. People can get blocked out of their accounts or things can get hacked and all that kind of stuff. And if you've signed up to the newsletter, you're going to see it's going to hit your inbox. I'm not a heavy newsletter person. It's maybe twice a month usually. And then the other thing that I just recently started doing, and I'm trying to be more consistent through this year because of some of this social media stuff, is posting more frequently on my blog that's on my website so that people can see things, because there are more and more people who are pulling back from social media, just frustrated by it. So I'm trying to make sure that those two places stay as up to date as possible so that people can know what's going on with new books and new series and all of those things. There's a reading order on my website so people can see, how the books fit together, because just it doesn't matter. Most of them can be read. You could pick up any of them and read them. But I like to read books in order in a series. And then even sometimes within series, I'm like, well, which series should I read first?
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter, especially Gossamer Falls. Gossamer Falls can completely be just, you can start there. You're not going to miss anything. Even the characters who show up in Break My Fall toward the end, hopefully it just makes you want to go read the Defend and Protect series and the Dive Team series when some of them make an appearance. But it's not crucial to the story for you to know anything
I would
about them.
agree.
So, yeah, so there's that. And then I am on Facebook and Instagram and X at Lynn H. Blackburn. Will get me in all those places. And I post fairly frequently, depending on what's going on. And it's usually book related, but like today, I posted a picture of Emma because it was just adorable. And sometimes there's baseball stuff, food. I love food, so sometimes there's food. Um,
Chick-fil-A, right? You gotta get
Chick-fil-A,
Chick-fil-A up
that's
there.
right. But yeah, I think that's, pretty easy to find. If somebody wants to do a book club, I would love to, zoom in on their book club and chat with readers and things like that, because it's always fun to hear what people think and
Hmm.
what characters resonated, because sometimes I'm surprised and sometimes I'm not. And it's either way, it's great to see what people think or what they liked and or didn't like, as the case may be.
We
So yeah.
love your trivia you put in at the coffee shop. The music or not trivia. I'm sorry, it was bingo, wasn't
Bingo,
it?
yes.
Yes.
Music bingo. That is a real thing at a local place near me. I have been to this. We have a place here in Simpsonville, and it's sort of a food court type place. There's multiple restaurants where you can order and then you can sit kind of in the middle, but it's higher end than like the mall food court. It's different things. And they have music bingo, and it's complete. You sit there, it's completely free, or maybe it's $3 or something, but you get your bingo boards and your little daubers, and then they play this music and you dab what you think it is. And one theme was 80s music. Every song had a color in it, I think. Like every song title had a color. She has different themes, and it's so family friendly. I went with a group of moms and our high school boys, and everybody had a blast. We had a great time. And then, so I was like, when I finished, I told the moms, it's like, this is 100% going in a book. This is
Oh, I
great.
loved it. I think we're gonna look at starting up some trivia nights online. So just like through Zoom. So,
Yeah.
when you talk about joining in, if I do some trivia on your books, I'll have to have you join us for
Yes, that would be
sure.
great. I would love that.
So
I would
we've
love
we've
that.
done it in the past on the podcast, and so but it does take a little bit of time to pull all your trivia questions in.
I would think
So,
so, yes. Yes, that would be challenging for sure. Yeah.
but it is fun, and that scene made me go, I think I want to bring that back.
Let's do that again.
So yes, well, thank you so much, Lynn, for chatting with us today and sharing about your books. And we
Thank you
cannot
for
wait
having me.
for your next book to come out.
Won't be too long.
Yes,
Well, it will be,
yes,
but hopefully it'll go fast.
yeah. All right, and we'll have you back here in July.
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please consider signing up for our free newsletter. Each week, you'll receive news about our events for both readers and authors, plus updates on my books. You can sign up at literaryscape.com/newsletter. Until next time, happy and blessed reading and writing.